Chaos. I am here in Las Vegas, Nevada right now. Right outside, you can see the land, the home of Raider Nation, Allegiant Stadium right here. Obviously, I'm in Mandalay Bay Hotel and Casino. I'm actually here for my wife's work conference, but obviously I'm here having some fun. Yesterday was the Week 4 Sunday slate of NFL football games, and we are going to be recapping everything that I saw yesterday. I had a lot of fun in the sports book, betting on stuff, went absolutely 1 for 4, so did a terrible job of picking games this weekend, but it is what it is. Might get to that later. I might tell you guys, kind of stuff that went wrong. But either way, let me start with the Week 4 recap. We're going to start with a Thursday night football game. The Lions versus the Packers. Obviously, this game was a division matchup. People were expecting it to be pretty close. I think the line was very close by the time the game kicked off there. And then it ended up not being close. The Lions look like a legit NFL football team right now. Obviously, they've had some decent wins this season, but I feel like this is the one that just puts them right just like, I don't know, at the top of the food chain here, because at least in the NFC, I should say, the fact that they went out there with a divisional rival and just smoked them on their own home turf in Lambeau was just something special, something that you didn't see in the past with the Lions. I know there was like the weird Lions win streak in Lambeau, but I don't know, this one just felt different. I feel like it was just a lot of dominance. Obviously, without Aaron Rodgers there, Jordan Love now at the helm. It's a whole new era of Packers and Detroit Lions football, and it looks like the Lions are not going to be going anywhere anytime soon. Jared Goff played pretty well. He threw an interception early in the game, but he bounced back in a big way and then was able to just basically dominate them the rest of the game. David Montgomery comes off of injury. He was not really expected to even play in this game, which was interesting, and then he obviously played in it, and he played incredibly great. He had like 30 touches in the game and kind of made Jahmyr Gibbs expendable, which is a lot of people's fear for the fantasy outlook of Jahmyr Gibbs going forward, but it is what it is, and the Lions dominated. Packers, obviously, they have some things to clean up. I think once they get some of their star players back, they're going to start playing a little bit better, but Jordan Love has just got to figure out when to, risk it, when to just be conservative, stuff of that nature, and he'll figure that out as he goes. He's got the arm strength, and I think he's got the talent, and I think he's got the smarts to really put it all together, but he'll get Christian Watson not on a snap count like he had on Thursday. He'll get Aaron Jones back not on a snap count like he had on Thursday as well, and that team will probably round into form by the end of the season. But the Detroit Lions just put it to them, and you got to give them credit for that. Next game, we're going to go with Jaguars versus Falcons. This was obviously the first game of Sunday. It was in the United Kingdom, or at Wembley Stadium in London there, and this game was very interesting. Obviously, you had the option to watch the Toy Story version of the game, which I saw clips of. I did not watch that version, but I saw clips of it, and it looked awesome. I mean, obviously, there were some like glitches and stuff like that that they need to clear up before trying to do something like that again, but the technology was wild. The fact that it was even possible is pretty crazy. Just like the features they had Slinky the dog as the chain gang in that broadcast, and it was very interesting. I loved it. I'm a huge Toy Story fan, so like I thought that the whole idea was awesome in general. But yeah, let's just get to the actual game here. Jaguars obviously win this game. Falcons, basically, just like I said last week, essentially if you can get them in a game script where they're behind, then they are susceptible to losing a football game, because Desmond Ridder cannot keep you in football games. He does not really do a good job of getting the ball into his playmakers' hands. Arthur Smith has got to make some changes to this offense in general. I know he wants to run the ball and kill the clock and let his defense do what it's going to do, but man, he's really got to be able to get the ball and manufacture touches for his star players. I mean, Drake London gets a touchdown in this game late in the game where it doesn't really matter as much. And it's just, you can't get him the ball that late. Another guy like Kyle Pitts, man, the fact that you guys picked him, I think he's the highest picked tight end of all time, and you can't get him the ball. I mean, there's ways, give him a screen pass. I mean, he is athletic enough to do something good with a screen pass. Just try something. You got to do something different, because obviously what you're doing now is not working. If the Falcons do not have a lead at the beginning of the game, they will lose it. And it's just really unfortunate to watch, because I think the Falcons team is pretty talented in general. Obviously, you see what Bijan Robinson can do. What an absolute monster of a pick he is. This dude was just doing some special things on Sunday, and hopefully it continues for my mental state of trying to keep myself into a playoff race in fantasy football here. But it is what it is. Let's go to the Jaguars here. Let's just touch on them. Honestly, they won the game, which is good, but they still have not really looked as good as you would expect them to. They've been a little disappointing. I mentioned it last week about how Press Taylor looks like he took over play calling from Doug Peterson for the Jaguars offense, and I think, once again, that's just not a good idea. I think they're going to have to go back to Doug Peterson, but if that's the main problem with their offense, they've got to fix it. They've got to look themselves in the mirror and make a change there. But for the most part, Trevor Lawrence looks okay. He still doesn't look great. They have plenty of weapons out there. Obviously, Zay Jones did not play in this game, so they're missing one of their weapons there, but they got plenty others. I mean, Christian Kirk and Calvin Ridley, Evan Ingram, ETN, that's plenty of players to get the ball to your playmakers and let them do something with it. And Trevor Lawrence is too good of a quarterback for them to just be kind of skating by right now and beating bad teams and losing to teams that are as good, if not better than them, by margins that they have this season. So it is what it is, but Jaguars get the win. You got to credit them for that. Let's move on to the next one. Bills versus Dolphins. This game obviously was one people were definitely keeping their eyes on for this Sunday. It was absolutely wild to look at the line. The line was, I think, at the end there, Dolphins minus 2.5. I don't know what the sports books were looking at. I don't know who knew what, but man, the Bills just brought it to the Dolphins. Everybody was on the Dolphins hype train because of the 50-point just routing of the Broncos last week. And obviously the Bills had a great outing and destroyed the Commanders, who looked really good this week against the Eagles. So both of these teams are very good teams, but it looks like the Bills just are on a different level right now. The Bills knew exactly what buttons to press against the Dolphins offense and even their defense. And man, they brought it to the Dolphins, and they didn't care how much they scored. They wanted to run it up to 70 like the Dolphins did last week against the Broncos, but they couldn't do it. They just ran out of time, essentially. I think they could have if they wanted to. You put on another quarter there. It's just crazy that the Bills have really bounced back after a very ugly week one. You got to give them credit for that. Josh Allen has kind of just honed himself back in from just being a little bit too loosey-goosey with the football in that first game. Even the first two games, it was a little bit too, gunslinger-esque for everybody's liking. But he's honed it in, and he has toted that line perfect of being, a little bit reckless, but a little bit, conservative at the same time. So he's doing a very good job. The Dolphins' offense looked a little bit off in this one. I think they were just changing the way things look on the backside for Tua. And Tua's he's so used to throwing to a spot, not necessarily throwing to specific, receivers. I mean, he's throwing to his receivers. Let's not get that twisted. But he's like, his receivers are usually running under his balls to go get them. He's throwing to a specific spot in like a zone. But I think they did a good job of changing the way things look on the backside between man and zone looks. And it confused Tua a little bit, made him hold the ball a little bit longer, and the pass rush was able to get there for the Bills. And the Bills do not even have Von Miller yet. So the fact that they can get him back as well, this Bills team is destined for going to at least the AFC Championship game, I believe. They keep playing in this fashion. Let's go to the next one here. We have the Ravens versus the Browns. This was a shocker when you look at the scoreboard, at least. I mean, the Ravens looked like they routed the Browns. The thing was, I went back and watched this game. Like I said, I was at the sportsbook yesterday, so it was a little hard to focus on every game when you don't have like red zone on and stuff like that. So I'm watching mostly the Dolphins and the Bills game because that was the one that was on the big screen there in the sportsbook. And then I was also watching, obviously, the Eagles and Commanders game because that's obviously my team. So I was paying attention mostly to those two and just glancing at the other ones. So I went back and watched the Ravens and the Browns on NFL Plus this morning. And, man, it really was just a story about how Dorian Thompson-Robinson, rookie quarterback, got thrust into the lineup after Deshaun Watson more or less kind of chose not to play in this game. Reports came out that he got medically cleared from that shoulder injury that he suffered the week before, and he just didn't throw a whole lot during the week. he was cleared for the game and then decided that he didn't feel good enough to play in the game. And so a lot of people are questioning, his toughness and if his will for actually wanting to play the game of football right now, because obviously DTR got thrust in that, starting lineup, and he just looked a little bit slow. And by that, I just mean processing. He was getting the ball out a little bit too late on some of the breaks and stuff of that nature. That's a chemistry thing. That's a thing where he hasn't gotten a lot of reps with the first team. And obviously, I don't know how many he got this week, in practice, considering Deshaun was just up in the air with his, choice of playing or not. So I just think it was just one of those situations where the Browns' offense was not working. It wasn't clicking on all cylinders because it was a rookie quarterback, and he didn't have as good chemistry with his playmakers and stuff of that nature. And then the Ravens just took care of business, really. Obviously, they moved the ball against a very good defense in the Cleveland Browns. Myles Garrett, all those guys over there on that side, they are so good. But the Ravens, I think they took advantage of the fact that they knew the Browns couldn't really move the ball very well on offense, and so they just kept scoring, and basically they got the job done. So got a shout out to the Ravens. They are now, I think, in the lead for the AFC North, and they're looking pretty solid. They're just going to get better and better as the season goes on. Just the more Lamar Jackson gets used to the offense with Todd Monken, the better they're going to end up being. Next game, we have Texans versus Steelers. This one I had to also go back and watch as well because I was just curious to see how this game kind of unfolded for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And, man, it really was just a story about how C.J. Stroud is the real deal, and he's doing this with, just a not-so-great offensive line. His offensive line is very banged up right now. The defense is very banged up. Some of their star players are out. Derek Stingley is on the IR. And, man, he's just getting it done. He's just getting it done at every turn. They're asking him to do a lot. They're putting a lot on his plate as a rookie quarterback, and he's answering the bell right now. And you got to give him credit for that. He looks like the best rookie quarterback right now from this past draft class. That's including Anthony Richardson, who looked awesome as well on Sunday in a comeback effort against the Rams. I'll get to that later. But, man, C.J. Stroud looks awesome. Bryce Young looks a little shaky, obviously. And Aiden O'Connell did not look so hot on Sunday as well. I'll get to that later as well. But, yeah, the Texans just look good. The Steelers, man, Matt Canada, got to go. The dude cannot coach the offensive side of the ball right now. He's just not play calling. He can't get his wide receivers open. They should be able to get separation. Some of them, like an Allen Robinson's not a guy that gets really open, but a Calvin Austin, who's got so much speed, should be getting open. A guy like George Pickens, who's got great moves, great hands, contested catch guy, he should be getting the ball more. Najee Harris looks a step slow like he has the last 2 seasons. If you have him in fantasy, you know how frustrating he can be watching him play football. That team just on offense is not very good. And I don't think it's all Kenny Pickett's fault. He doesn't look fantastic either. His O-line is very suspect as well. So all in all, the Steelers offense is kind of in shambles. The Steelers defense is just, they're okay. I think they can keep their team in games at this point in time, but even a guy like a C.J. Stroud can just kind of carve him up whenever he gets the opportunity to. So, Texans look good. C.J. Stroud looks like the truth. He is the franchise quarterback for the Houston Texans, so you don't have to worry about that for the next 10, 15 years, it looks like, Houston. So congratulations on that. Next game, we have Rams versus Colts. So this one was, obviously, I just alluded to Anthony Richardson having a good game. This game was crazy. Rams go up 20, I think it was 20 or 23-0 at half. I think it was 20-0 at half. And then, obviously, in the third and fourth quarter, they didn't even, I think it was 23-0 still with 7 minutes left in the third quarter, and the Colts just get going. This is a situation where I'm watching this, I'm having to watch this game back again on NFL Plus this morning, and I'm watching a Colts offense who is run by Shane Steichen, and a guy that, like, an athletic guy that can run at quarterback, a guy that can really throw the ball, and Anthony Richardson. And I'm thinking about also watching yesterday the Eagles offense against the Washington Commanders, and I keep thinking to myself, this Eagles offense, I know I'm getting a little ahead of myself here in the whole rundown, but the Eagles offense is struggling because it is a Shane Steichen problem. Shane Steichen was calling a great game on Sunday. I know they were down early in that one. They came all the way back, tied it up, and then brought it to overtime. And then they just didn't get the ball back. The Rams went straight down the field and scored a touchdown with Puka Nacua. But just the Colts offense looks creative. They're getting guys open. They don't have that great of weapons, so you can only imagine when they do end up having good weapons what this is going to look like. Shane Steichen's doing an incredible job, man. And Anthony Richardson looks ridiculous. He made some throws in this game that got them back in this game. And it's special stuff from them too. Now let's talk about how the Rams looked for a team that people did not expect to have a good season. Just the Rams have shown up this season and played much better than everybody expected, including myself. Obviously, Cooper Kupp, the injury to him going down, not a great look for the Rams' outlook for the season going into it. But they have found a guy in Puka Nacua who has stepped up. Tutu Atwell has stepped up. Matt Stafford has definitely stepped up. This guy has played incredible football thus far in the season. He has stayed healthy, which has been an incredible thing for their offense in general. And then, obviously, the defense is playing out of their mind for a team that has so many just random parts thrown in together, undrafted free agent, rookies, just everything you can think of, and then Aaron Donald, basically. They have looked awesome under Raheem Morris. He's done a great job. I've alluded to that in podcasts prior, but I just want to give him more praise at this point because he's done a great job. They were able to hold off this Colts offense for enough time, basically, to get them to win. But the Rams offense looks good. I'm very, very scared to see what the Rams offense is going to look like when Cooper Kupp does come back, which could be this next week against the Eagles. I'm scared to see what McVay and Matt Stafford can do with the Eagles defense, considering what Sam Howell just did with the Eagles defense, and we'll get to that next. Speaking of that, we'll just actually go right into that. Let's go to the Eagles versus Commanders here. Watch this game in the sports book with my Jalen Carter jersey on, supporting my team and whatnot, and I'm just sitting there. I'm surrounded by a few other Eagles fans in there. There was a few of them. You could tell when things went right for the Eagles in this game. They kind of made themselves known. For the most part, the day was pretty quiet for us because the Commanders came out and punched us in the mouth, and we were not ready for that. It's a home game for the Eagles. Usually you think the energy is going to be there right from the jump, but Washington got the ball first, marched right down the field, scored a touchdown, and from then on, it was tough sledding for every portion of the Eagles for the most part. I mean, Jalen Hurts had a pretty decent game, looked a little sketchy at the beginning, then he got into a little bit of a rhythm. I think they just had to figure out, I think Brian Johnson and Jalen Hurts kind of had to just figure out what the Washington Commanders defense was trying to do to them. And I think what they need to do is figure that out a little bit quicker than they have been the last 3 weeks. I mean, they're 4-0. I can't complain too much, obviously. But it just seems like, it looked like the Washington Commanders were just trying to stop the run, obviously, and make the Eagles a little bit one-dimensional. The run game has worked the last 3 weeks of the season for the Eagles. DeAndre Swift has had an incredible start to the season, and this one he got bottled up pretty good. But he had a solid first half. Then I think they really started to just stack the box against the Eagles and then make them want to throw deep. And eventually Jalen Hurts started taking advantage of that exact thing because obviously he started to connect with Devontae Smith first, and right before the half came about, basically, he hit Devontae Smith way downfield for an incredible catch by him. He went up over two defenders, just like he did last year in the Washington football game, the first one. And he kind of broke the dam in that mold where it was kind of like, once that happened, Jalen Hurts had the confidence to go through the rest of the game and say, look, if there's going to be one-on-one opportunities out there, if they're not going to, if they're going to essentially allow me to throw deep, I'm going to start doing it. And he hit A.J. Brown a couple times late in this game. And obviously it was a clutch portion of the game at the end when he hit A.J. Brown for the last one for the touchdown. But situationally, what the Eagles could have done there, because it left like a minute 40 left on the clock after they threw the touchdown, because really all they had to do, they were on the Washington side of the field. They could have just ran the ball, made the Commanders waste their last timeout, and then just wasted the rest of the clock, kicked the field goal, got out of there with a win. But what happened was obviously Jalen Hurts saw a look he liked. He threw deep to A.J. Brown. We scored the touchdown and went up by a touchdown late in the game with 1:40 left. But then that gave the Commanders enough time to carve up an Eagles secondary that was getting just smoked on. Basically, it was just we have some liabilities at safety right now and nickel corner. So what's happening now because of injuries and whatnot, we're having Terrell Edmonds play the other safety role beside Reed Blankenship. Reed Blankenship's a good player. Nothing wrong there. Obviously, Darius Slay on the outside is a great player. What we're having to do right now because of a nickel cornerback in Avonte Maddox, who was out for the season with a torn pec, we have moved officially. I mean, I don't know for how long after this showing, but for the time being, James Bradbury has moved inside to play nickel, which then we have put Josh Jobe, a second-year player out of Alabama, at the outside cornerback spot, and he has been getting lit up a little bit, and so I don't know if they're going to want to try to go back to something different, maneuver that secondary again, but we got carved up by Sam Howell in this offense. Obviously, the Commanders have great weapons in McLaurin and Jahan Dotson and Logan Thomas, De'Ami Brown. I mean, you name it, Curtis Samuel. They got players. They got wide receivers on that team, and they carved us up. I mean, they were getting the ball out of their hands quick. Sam Howell was getting the ball out of his hands quick for the most part. The Eagles' pass rush didn't get there a whole lot yesterday, but they were pressuring him. But whenever they did pressure him, he was able to get it out because there was open receivers pretty much everywhere. It just seemed like we were playing a little bit too soft in coverage, and I think we were just kind of hoping that Sam Howell was going to make a mistake. And in the NFL, hope is not a strategy because these players are good enough to get the job done if you give them opportunity to do it. So the Eagles escaped with a win at the end of the day. It just is what it is. The Eagles are 4-0. I can't complain too much, but I am scared to see a defense who got smoked by Sam Howell go up against Matt Stafford in this passing offense, and Sean McVay is going to have something ready for us. And I'm hoping Sean Desai goes back to the drawing board and, obviously make some changes to the defense and maybe can adapt to something a little bit differently. Next game, we have Titans versus Bengals. This is another game I had to go back and watch. You look at the scoreboard on this one and you say, what in the world transpired in this game? I went back and watched, like I said, and it was essentially, I think this was the best offensive game plan for the Titans that they've had all season. There was a whole lot of runs. Obviously, Derrick Henry, Tajay Spears, that duo has become pretty solid as a 1-2 punch. I think they've got a nice little, split there in carries where both of them can be very effective, and the change of pace is nice, I think, for their offense. Defenses, not so much. They probably do not like the fact that they've got these two different workhorses on their team. But right now, I think what's going on with the Titans is they're running the ball enough to make people scared of the run, and then they are doing, it felt like when watching the game, 80% of their pass plays had a play action attached to it or a ball fake, and I was like, that is exactly how the Titans have to play football and offense in order to compete right now with the lack of weapons they have. I mean, they have DeAndre Hopkins, Nick Westbrook-Akine, he's just okay. They have Chig Okonkwo at tight end, obviously. They got decent weapons, but nothing special. And DeAndre Hopkins is not the Hopkins of old right now, so he is looking old. But basically, on the flip side there, Joe Burrow and the Bengals, their offense looks just stagnant. I mean, it looks terrible. I follow a guy on Twitter. His name is Benjamin Solak. He is a great podcaster, writer for, The Ringer. That's who he works for. But anyways, he's a great Twitter follow. So he put out a passing chart and he just said, guess whose passing chart this is? And it shows exactly where all the passes were ending up, complete and incomplete passes. And, man, it was and people were like, I'm pretty sure this is Joe Burrow. And it was spot on, man. It was all just within, it felt like 10, 15 yards. Everything was short, nothing very long. The longest one was a seam route that he threw to Tyler Boyd in the game. Other than that, everything's super short, which is just a testament to I think, his health status right now. I don't think he's healthy, and I don't think he's going to get healthy by the end of the season, especially if he keeps playing on it. I think they're going to have to bite the bullet at some point and just either rest him or just like call it on the season. I don't know what they need to do, but the Bengals offense cannot operate like this for long. They're just going to keep losing games if they do, because the offense is just too predictable at this point. It's just run the ball and then like throw it short. I mean, this is not going to be sustainable for the rest of the season. And they're just going to be wasting a season here of T. Higgins, who's going to be a free agent after the season. So Bengals, it looks pretty bad for their outlook for the rest of the season, and for seasons in the future here, whenever they start losing some of their weapons like T. Higgins in the future, like next year. So Titans look good. They have to keep replicating this type of offensive game plan over and over to be competitive in that AFC South, because they are all tied up 2-2, which is just crazy that AFC South is that competitive right now. And then the Bengals, I don't know what they're going to have to do. I don't know if they sit Joe Burrow and call the season, or keep trotting him out there and letting this offense just look so stagnant and ugly for the rest of the season. But it is what it is. We'll go on to the next one. Chargers versus Raiders. Watch this one. This was in the late game window, obviously. I watched this one mostly because I was at the sports book and I bet on the Raiders plus 6.5. Bad bet by me, but it started to look good at the end there. I don't know if you watched this game or not, but it got close at the end. Aiden O'Connell eventually threw a pick to essentially seal the deal for the Chargers. And then Justin Herbert made an incredible 60-yard pass to Joshua Palmer to really seal the deal at the end there, because there was still a little bit of time left that the Raiders could have technically got a stop and then tried to score again on the Chargers. But really watching this game, I mean, obviously Khalil Mack had 6 sacks. He was getting after Aiden O'Connell. Aiden O'Connell, a rookie, thrust in there because Jimmy G did not play because he couldn't pass the concussion protocol going into this week. And he was getting bottled up, and he was staying tough and holding himself in the pocket, which I appreciated his toughness for that. But he kept fumbling the football. He kept getting the ball swatted out of his hands, and they lost a couple of those fumbles, and it just kind of cost the Raiders, really. I think the Raiders had a real chance to win this game if he didn't do that, because at the end of the game, Aiden O'Connell kind of settled into the game a little bit, started making some plays, and scoring some touchdowns. But it was a little bit too late for the Raiders at that point. And the Chargers, honestly, if Jimmy G's in there, I don't know if the Chargers win that game. It's crazy to think about. I'm not a Jimmy G guy by any stretch, but really, Aiden O'Connell did like terrible. Like for the chances of the Raiders to win the game, they still almost came back and won that game. Had a real chance there. So it's crazy. But the Chargers are going to Charger. It is what it is. All right, next game, we have the Cowboys versus the Patriots. This game was an absolute just disaster of a game for the Patriots. Mac Jones looked terrible, but really it was just that Cowboys defense. That Cowboys defense was just baiting him into bad decisions the entire game. Their defensive line is just so fast. They get there so fast, and if you don't have a quarterback that's poised enough to just stick it in there and just basically stay in the pocket and make a good decision, they're going to bait you into bad decisions, and guys like Deron Bland are going to take picks back to the house. There's going to be forced fumbles. Leighton Vander Esch has a touchdown in this game off a forced fumble. Just Mac Jones trying to get out of the pocket, gets sacked, fumbles the ball there. So, I mean, it was just a bad day for the Patriots offense in general. The defense couldn't really do anything because they were on the field quite a bit, because the offense for the Patriots wasn't on the field. It was just all around a bad showing for the Patriots. The Cowboys come back after a bad loss to the Cardinals. Obviously, I had a feeling that they were going to bounce back hard against a team like the Patriots, who just aren't as talented as them in general, and they were going to be pissed off about the Cardinals' loss, and so I knew they were going to have a big bounce back. I bet on them to win the game yesterday, obviously. That was part of one of my parlays. That parlay didn't hit, unfortunately, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, Cowboys look good. They looked efficient on offense, running the ball, Dak getting the ball out of his hands quickly into his playmakers, letting them make plays. The Cowboys just keep strolling along. I think they're going to have a tall task this next week. I think they play San Fran, and it's going to be very interesting to see how that goes. Obviously, they have just one loss on the season. It was an unfortunate one for them. But as long as they keep chugging along like this, they're still going to make the playoffs. There's not going to be any chance they don't make it. It's just a matter of if they win the NFC East from the Eagles potentially. We'll see how that pans out down the road. But Cowboys are still a good team. I wouldn't put it, I wouldn't make any kind of big proclamation out of the fact they lost to the Cardinals last week, but it just kind of is what it is. That's the NFL. Sometimes you just take teams lightly, and it happens that way. The NFL it's any given Sunday. Anybody can win if you do not put your A game out there for the most part. Next game, we have 49ers versus Cardinals. Kind of the same story here. The 49ers came out and just dominated the Cardinals right off the rip. The Cardinals kind of made a little bit of a comeback. They had a better showing than the Patriots did against the Cowboys, but the Cardinals fought in this one. But really, it was the Christian McCaffrey show in this one. He had 4 total touchdowns in the game. He is proving why he is one of the most important and special players in all of football. And it's funny that he's doing that as a running back and as we're, in the offseason. And bleeding into this season, we had so many debates about the importance of running backs and do you pay them and whatnot and stuff like that. And then you have a guy like Christian McCaffrey that pretty much makes that entire engine run over there in San Francisco. Their offense is awesome because of him for the most part. Brock Purdy doesn't make a whole lot of bad mistakes, so he is a guy that obviously helps that offense as well. And he just facilitates and gets the ball out to his playmakers. 49ers are just balling again. Their defense is very good. They're at least a top 5 defense, you'd think, in the NFL right now, and they just keep rolling. They are 4-0, along with the Eagles, the only 2 4-0 teams, undefeated teams left in the NFL after the Dolphins lost yesterday to the Bills. And I think if I had to bet money on it, the 49ers are going to be the last team to be undefeated. I think the Eagles will drop one of these few games in the next few ones. And it really could be next week against the Rams. Like I said, if Sean Desai and that defense don't figure out a way to shore up that backside of the defense. So we're going to move on to the next one. We have Chiefs versus Jets. This was a very odd game. Chiefs get it done in the end. Not a whole lot to say. Obviously, there's some controversy with some of the calls at the end of the game. The Jets had a chance to win the game. Zach Wilson fumbles at the end and kind of blames the whole loss on himself. Obviously, he hadn't been playing good this year, but this was probably his best game of the season. And you wouldn't have expected it against the Chiefs defense, who a lot of people think is pretty solid, including myself. And Pat Mahomes probably had his worst game of the season, other than maybe Detroit, obviously, when they lost that one. But this was just a weird game in general. Obviously, you had the whole spectacle of Taylor Swift coming to New York and watching that game. I think she probably has a house in New York or an apartment in New York, whatever. So it's not like it's anything crazy for her to show up in New York City to watch a football game. But with the whole Travis Kelce ordeal happening, obviously she's there and they're making a whole spectacle of it. The NFL's jumping on this because she has a bajillion freaking followers on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram or whatever the heck. All the social media, she just has a crazy following. And the NFL's trying to capitalize on that. So they're diving all into the Taylor Swift, narrative or whatever. Agenda, I should say. But yeah, Chiefs get it done at the end of the day. They're still a good team. The one thing that you can take away from this game, though, is the fact that you can tell that there is a talent deficiency in the passing game. I mean, it's not Pat Mahomes. It's the fact that you have Sky Moore out there just essentially getting cardio. He's just running around. He's just running routes right now and not really getting open, not really catching a whole lot of passes. Just their receiving core is a little bit lackluster. I think they need to get some of their young guys more involved. Rashee Rice. Give Justin Ross a chance to see what he has, in a real NFL game. Maybe you don't see it in practice as much, but just give it a try. It can't be any worse than Sky Moore, like I said, just running out there doing, track drills. So it is what it is. Chiefs get the win. They're still rolling, and I expect them to be in the AFC playoffs as well. Basically, the last thing we're going to get to here, we're going to do a little preview of the Seahawks versus Giants game. That is going to be the game tonight. I don't know when you're going to be watching this. I don't even know when this is going to get uploaded because I'm going to be on hotel Wi-Fi, so this might take me forever to get done. But Seahawks versus Giants. Seahawks, the line right now is Seahawks minus 2.5. It moved from 1.5 to 2.5 now, so people are jumping on that right now. The over-under is at 46.5. Was at 47.5, so it's moved a bit there as well. And I think I like the Seahawks with the points, and I like minus 2.5, and I like the over on this game. Basically, the way I see this game playing out, if it goes the way I think and the way I want, considering I'm betting on this, I think the Seahawks are just a better overall team than the Giants right now. The Seahawks defense is susceptible to letting up decent amounts of points, but I think the Seahawks will jump out to a lead here, and I think Daniel Jones in that offense will probably try to crawl back into the game late, and he'll end up scoring a lot of points and maybe make it close at the end. But I think the Seahawks can win by a field goal or more. So I'm going to go with the Seahawks in this one. I'm going to go with the over on this one as well. I'm going to be betting this at the sportsbook later on today, which is not very far from now because this time change from going from the East Coast to the West Coast has been crazy. I am like exhausted, but I'll get used to it, and then as soon as I get used to it, we'll leave and go back to the East Coast, and I'll have jet lag. It's going to be crazy. But it is what it is, and this is pretty much all I got for this episode of Coordinated Chaos. I appreciate everybody that tuned in. I'm sorry if there was any kind of audio issues or anything like this. Just trying to do a podcast on the road in a hotel room is kind of weird. I've gotten very creative. I'm going to post a picture of just how creative I had to get with this setup. But yeah, I appreciate everybody tuning in, and I will talk to you guys next week. Peace.